everyone, my name is Amanda, and welcome to my channel, where we talk about all things true crime. Solved cases, unsolved cases, missing persons, old cases, new cases, you name it, if it's true crime, we talk about it here. Before we jump into today's case, I just wanted to remind you to like and subscribe to my channel to get more videos like this. Also, if you'd like to follow me on social media, you can find me at AmandaWarnerYT on all platforms, but I'll go ahead and post those in the description box below. Also, in the description box, you can find all my sources, so if you want to check any of them out yourself. All right, so today's case takes place in Fairfield, Illinois. We will be talking about the murder of 15-year-old Megan Nichols. So this is another one of those videos that I knew nothing about before diving in, but at least it's a solved one. The date was July 3rd, 2014, and it was a normal Thursday for Kathy Jo Hutchcraft and her daughter, Megan Nichols. At about 2 p.m. that afternoon, Megan asked her mother if she could go for a bike ride, and her mother said yes, of course, as long as she wasn't going to get into things she shouldn't be doing. She and her mother would end up going to run some errands later that evening together. Kathy Jo described her relationship with her daughter as quite close, so it was no surprise that they would go run errands together. Megan Paige Nichols was born on July 18, 1998, to her mother, Kathy Jo, and her father, Jackson Nichols. At the time of her disappearance, she lived with her mother and her stepfather in a home in Fairfield, Illinois. She was going into what I believe is her sophomore year at New Hope School, where she was reportedly a good student and an avid church member. So back to July 3rd, while Megan and her mom were out, Megan stated that she wasn't feeling well and she just wanted to go home and lay down. So Kathy dropped her daughter off and went back out and continued finishing up the errands that she needed to run. In some of my sources, it said she was gone about an hour. Kathy Jo returned home a bit later, and before she went to bed, she went up to Megan's room to say goodnight. But when she entered Megan's room, she found out that Megan wasn't there. Kathy called her mother frantically and decided to go with her mother down to the police station to report Megan missing. But I guess that it was fairly early on, just a few hours after they had seen Megan last, and police said that there wasn't much they could do at this point. So Kathy Jo and her mother returned home to look for some ideas of where maybe Megan went or who she was with. Upon entering Megan's room, Kathy Jo found Megan's cell phone laying on the bed, and after looking at it, she realized that the phone had been wiped clean. All of her messages, contacts, and photos had been erased. Along with the phone, there had been a note that had been left behind. In this note, it was written from Megan to Kathy, saying that she loved her mom, but she wasn't happy there. In the note, Megan said that she didn't want her mother looking for her because, according to the note, it didn't make sense to look for somebody who didn't want to be found. When asked about this note later, Kathy Jo said that it did look like Megan's handwriting, but it didn't appear to be the words that she normally used. So maybe she wrote the note under duress or something like that, according to her mother. Kathy Jo returned back to the police station with the phone and the note, which caused the police to start investigating. One of the first leads that police had was actually someone related to Megan. It was her biological father, Jackson Nichols. Police wondered if she had reached out to him for some sort of aid in running away. One reason for concern is that Jackson was actually a registered sex offender. Kathy Jo told True Crime Daily that he was of age and the young girl was not. Apparently, he was 18 years old and the girl was 14 years old. And this girl's mother, when she found out, notified police. So Jackson was then charged with 2 counts of nonviolent sexual assault. However, according to Jackson, he wasn't aware of this, and he didn't find out until like 10 years later when he got pulled over for what I would assume was speeding, because he said he got pulled over for a speeding ticket. So he got pulled over for speeding, I guess, and was notified then that he had these 2 counts against him. So now he is a registered sex offender and has to be on the FBI watch list for 10 years. I have to say that's gross. But this story isn't about Jackson because police were able to locate him in Oklahoma and clear him in any involvement with Megan going missing. So while police were looking into Megan's dad, Kathy Jo found out that during the bike ride that she went on back on the day she disappeared, she actually went to the ATM. Her mom first saw this when she looked at the bank statements to see if there had been any activity giving an indication of where Megan might be. And it was later confirmed by video from the bank that it was Megan who rode up on her bicycle, took money out of the ATM, and left all by herself. Now, I wasn't able to find out how much she took out, so if this is a case you're familiar with and you know the answer, let me know in the comments below because I feel like there's a complete difference between like taking out $20 to go to dinner with somebody or 300 or more dollars to run away. Either way, it looked like Megan was labeled as a runaway while the police investigated what had happened. Kathy Jo had one suspect in mind, Megan's previous boyfriend, Brody Marburger. I hope I said that right. I'm terrible with names. Brody was an 18-year-old senior at New Hope School, which was the same school that Megan had attended. They had dated from the end of 2013 to the middle-ish of 2014. At one point, Kathy had seen messages between Brody and Megan, and it looked like Brody was actually seeing someone else at the same time that he was seeing Megan. So, in my opinion, like a good mother, Kathy told Megan that she was not allowed to see this boy because obviously he wasn't appreciating her and was just using her if he was seeing her and somebody else at the same time. And although Kathy Jo would describe Megan as a good kid, she did not listen to her mother, which I think is actually rather typical with teenage romances. If you're told to stay away from a boy or a girl, it seems like they go more towards them. So, with that being said, Megan did get her phone taken away for not listening to her mother. On Memorial Day of 2014, Kathy Jo ended up calling police because a similar situation. She went up to Megan's room where she wanted to say goodnight or say something to her, and she realized that Megan was not in her room. So she called police, and as she was on the phone with 911, Megan came walking through the backyard. Kathy Jo had thought that the relationship with Brody was over at the time of Megan's disappearance. However, it was confirmed through police records that Brody was the last person that Megan had texted and called with. At one point, Brody had actually made a Facebook post declaring his innocence around the speculation that he had something to do with Megan's disappearance. And it seemed like police even agreed, saying he was not a suspect. Once it was confirmed that Megan wasn't with her dad, there was really no leads that police had. It was just Megan's mother, Kathy Jo, trying to get her name out there to see if anyone would provide any information to police that could solve the case. It wasn't until December 26, 2017, when skeletal remains were found in a shallow grave. A couple, friends of Megan's family, actually were out looking for wood to chop up for firewood, and they came across the shallow grave and the remains. The couple notified police, but the family just had to wait to see if it was Megan's remains. The remains were first taken to Bloomington, where an autopsy was completed, and from there, they were transferred to the FBI Forensic Lab in Quantico, Virginia. A month later, police announced that the remains had been confirmed to be Megan Nichols and that her death was ruled a homicide. I have to imagine that this brings some answers to Megan's family, although now they need to know who did this and why. At least they're able to bring her home so she can be properly laid to rest. The case seemed to go quiet again until September 25th, 2020, when Brody was actually indicted on first-degree murder charges. Brody was also indicted on 2 counts of home invasion and 1 count of concealment of homicidal death. And according to the indictment, police say that the home invasion charges came from when Brody entered Megan's home between November 2013 and July 2014, even though he was not welcome there by Megan's parents. He was arrested outside of his place of employment on October 8th, 2020, without incident. When he was arrested, he was living in a town in Indiana and had to be extradited back to Illinois to stand trial. He pled not guilty to the charges and demanded that he had a trial by February 4th, and his bail was set at $300,000. But as you can guess it, his trial did not start on February 4th of 2021. It actually didn't start until October 3rd, 2022. And it was during his trial that we were able to find out a little more information on why police think that he murdered Megan. According to testimony, Brody initially tried to lie about him having a sexual relationship with Megan. And although that's wrong and you shouldn't lie to police, it doesn't help the investigation whatsoever. I understand that a little bit because I looked into it and the age of consent was 17. So I feel like if he just admitted to it right away, they would definitely hit him with a charge of some sort. The theory the defense put forth during the trial was that Megan had just run away, which aligned with her wiping her phone, the note, and the fact that she had previously snuck out of her house. So remember I mentioned that girl that Brody was seeing at the same time he was seeing Megan back in 2014? Well, her name is Kendra, and Kendra testified at trial that Brody was actually at her house that night that Megan went missing, and he was texting and received phone calls from her, and he abruptly left, including leaving his phone at her house. According to prosecution, he was unaccounted for 6 hours following this time. Then, an FBI agent testified that over 7,000 text messages were sent between December 2013 and February of 2014. And these messages started out as romantic and sweet in nature. And at one point, the couple even planned to run away together. But as the relationship went on, they did not stay that way. And at one point, Brody even texted Megan, calling her annoying. Brody would also tell people that he went to Megan's house at 9:30 at night the day she went missing to see if she had run away because he thought she had, which doesn't make any sense. But he put himself at her house at 9:30 at night the day she disappeared. So, in my opinion, the biggest piece of evidence that was offered at trial was the fact that there was blood that was found in the trunk of Brody's car that he was driving back in 2014. Now, he wasn't driving this car still when he was arrested in 2020 because apparently the car was totaled in a car accident back in 2016. But either way, they found that there was blood in the trunk of his car, and that blood was a positive match to Megan's blood. Now, Brody decided it would be smart to take the stand and defend himself against the allegations of blood being in the trunk. He wanted to describe, in his words, what happened. So he testified that after a sexual encounter between him and Megan, she had bled a lot. So he took a t-shirt, cleaned up the mess, and put that t-shirt in his trunk. So his trunk was taking on water, which caused the shirt to become saturated in water, basically, and the blood just bleed out from the shirt into his trunk. That's his story, and he's sticking to it. The trial lasted just under 2 weeks before the jury was sent off to deliberate on Brody's fate. And after just under an hour of deliberating, in some cases I saw two, but either way, an hour, 2 hours, pretty fast for a murder case. But Brody was found guilty of first-degree murder of Megan Nichols. He faces between 20 and 60 years in prison. He was just recently found guilty last month, so sentencing hasn't happened yet because they allowed time for an appeal, which his lawyer did file an appeal requesting that the guilty verdict be overturned, because a lot of information that was brought into his trial, his lawyer says was irrelevant to the case. A few things that I saw in there was the fact that he had a sexual relationship with Megan, that wasn't relevant to the case. And two, that it wasn't relevant that he allegedly kicked Megan in like May or April of 2014, which I think the way you treat somebody you're on trial for murdering is extremely relevant to the case. So once his appeal is handled and they move on to sentencing, I will go ahead and update everybody with another video or short regarding what he was sentenced to. And so my question to you is, do you think Brody is guilty? I personally think that although I usually like more concrete evidence, that this case is pretty compelling. The fact that he was unaccounted for 6 hours, he was the last person that she texted and called, her blood was found in his trunk, and he was telling people that he was at her house that night. I think all of those things together make me think that he's guilty and belongs in prison for at least 60 years for this. All right, so if you made it this far, thank you so much, and I truly appreciate you. If there's a case you'd like to see me cover, go ahead and drop that in the comments. So again, my social medias will be in the description box below. Please like and subscribe to my channel so you can get more notifications about videos like this. Take care, and I'll see you next time.